Welcome to AHRC TV's weekly roundup. In this week's programme, Nepal's constitutional crisis has led to violence in parliament and on the streets. Supreme Court advocate Dipendra Jha speaks to AHRC TV about the crisis. Thein Than Oh, Chief Court Advocate, elaborates on Burma's lingering illegal land grabbing crimes. Following up from last week, Thai lawyer Pawine Chumsri talks about illegal detention in militarized Thailand. Sri Lanka abolished the autocratic 18th Amendment of the Constitution, and more improvements are anticipated. A new report about West Papua shows continuing human rights violations. From the Philippines, Congressman Carlos Zarate has a presentation on indigenous groups being evicted in Mindanao for mining projects. Welcome to AHRC TV's weekly roundup. I'm Josephina Bergston. We begin with violence over the still undrafted constitution in Nepal. Scuffles broke out in Nepal's parliament in the early hours of January 20th. Tensions mounted after Maoist and Madhesi lawmakers resorted to violence and vandalism. The scuffle broke out before a January 22nd deadline to draft the constitution. The Maoist and its 30 alliance parties want to adopt a constitution through consensus. However, the ruling parties wanted to push through the draft constitution before January 22nd, with or without consensus. As it stands, the opposition coalition and the ruling parties disagree over key aspects of the constitution, mostly over the issue of federalism. In response, members of parliament from the opposition parties started the scuffle to prevent the majority from pushing the constitution through. Chairs were broken, marshals injured during the struggle, and there were even attempts to attack Parliamentary Speaker Suvash Nembang. Nepal has been attempting to draft the constitution since electing its first Constituent Assembly in 2008. Now, even the second Constituent Assembly may dissolve without delivering a draft constitution. This week saw a nationwide strike, popularly known as Band, by the alliance of 30 opposition parties, with the Maoists leading the strike. Bearing the brunt of this unrest over political developments are, as is normal, the common Nepali citizens. The country has been brought to a standstill by the Bands, without shops, schools, offices and transport operating normally. Earlier, AHRC TV interviewed Dipendra Jha, advocate at the Supreme Court of Nepal, on the constitutional crisis in Nepal.
It is a clear sign of that the country is moving towards another conflict, communal violence, and there is a possibility of large scale of human rights violation because the opposition are on the street. So the vandalism within the CA actually is a sign that the country is moving towards conflict. This is just first year. 1 year has crossed after the second Constituent Assembly election. And the deadline, January 22, is actually self-imposed deadline. There is nothing written that within 1 year the Constitution will be delivered. So we have still 3 years. If political parties are trying to form consensus, but as the political parties publicly announced that they would deliver Constitution within a year, it's a kind of moral question that people are frustrated. That the first year couldn't deliver constitution, even the second year, in the first year, as the political parties has publicly committed that we will give constitution within a year, they have not delivered as per their promise. So there is a kind of frustration, kind of irritation among the general public. But still we have not lost our own hope. We are hoping that something would happen and the political parties will find a consensus. And they may deliver constitution within like 2 or 3 months.
And now to Burma and our continuing reporting on illegal land grabbing. During the military regime, the military confiscated farmland across Burma for different reasons and purposes. They conspired with companies owned by cronies, sold the land to other businesses, and built military-owned factories on the land. When farmers tried to get their land back, they were prosecuted. Fair trials are rare, as judges are not independent, often ruling only for the benefit of the military. Thein Than Oh, Chief Court Advocate, is here to talk about land rights issues, rule of law, and the flawed judicial system in Burma.
Leatherma had general time be Louis, Consia, no job dead. Leatherma Piatana had time be a Piatana, general pure Mava. Eddie Apoma, he leathermari a you, penning a party gamma, penning consongama, sing one's amupia, general Matuya, the general Nanga man, a township for the Wuchia, she near the Mia. The Asian sitting a Peroma Lula Pamia night Mahu, or Ochoyala when swap up pare, now the car, General Musi and Dalma. To a Kayano dying Lodoro, Biamra John Jag, and even do not do this, or I need Hamil Pido. I would Tana Saya, a dream hallway, a testing outside Sopamuri, see, a being a less swapper, that the lone swapper, or the Asian Yen or the General Mario Kawa, Benemo. They are to be down to the other Rojo, a mere zone the Ayun Biodo Yalebe, for the Unchari, and any weapons of Masiu, Sepasan Murio, Jana with Masiu, the Mia Uri Maladia Mata Masiu, Mirio, Dingas and Carungaro. So I think in a karma. Part out time, I'm a look out thing later. Now, be a beers or a tauta big kind. Liam, you think it a township was a me thing, Uri, da Kuchi, the Diawan in the Bababi. I'm doing left the Diamata Mushiba. English nature, the Makuluni kick up Piatane Uri, so we met 10 jail me out, 10 lulu yao. Ganta Handari, Leatherman and our Gawa, Anya, Tiuri, she said there's sound then Uri Pite. Tiago Kuluni kick out Uri to the council and Dabido. 10 and they know Yara Uri legend in Rapside. Eddie Uria, Malina, and Leathermau, Yoji, the Yama, Baby, Leathermau, Gijon, the Botago, I sent the cancer video, human side thing it out. At having Uri a car where General Leathermari, Yahoo, General Zimaria, with whom we aim at Anne, Ezra, Timia Mugini at the Piani. You must say Uri, my comb Jatanta with a Bogo Dujin or Bogo Dujin, Lula by Bogo Dujin, Piscina, but the Piscigan and Batadari, or General appears on Shibida. They also do a leather map, they also come and sit that guy located the General Palma Malutainava. The Aurim, Masumura, Uri, Masida.
Next, we go to part 2 of our interview with Thai lawyer Pawine Chumsri, who last week spoke with us about the diminishing space for freedom of expression in military-ruled Thailand. This week, we cover Pawine's views on arbitrary and prolonged detention in the country.
According to the implementation of martial law, there's a number of arbitrary arrests and detention under martial law because military can arrest any people that they think that violate the law, for example, and they don't need to have the court warrants to arrest people. Just they think these people is violate the law or dangerous, they can arrest and able to detain that person for 7 days. And we got a complaint that the relative don't really know where the detainee is. They don't inform the relative about the arrest and about the detention center. And they're not allowed to the relative to meet the detainee, even the lawyers. And when we try to find where that person is, they will not respond us properly and they will not let us meet that person. Under the martial law and NCPO's governments, they declare that the civilians have to go to the military court, which is important issue because the military court we don't have the appeals court. It's just one court and it limit the right. It restrict the right of appeals and also the court is one of the part of the military unit. So most of all the judge is the military. So we think that have a lot of problem about the fair trial and about the jurisdiction of the military court. It shouldn't. So we urge that the civilian shouldn't go to the military court. Like if you do something which military don't like, you can be arrested and detained up to 7 days. I can say it is a arbitrary detention, arrest and detention.
And now on to Sri Lanka. On the 21st of January, the government tabled in Parliament a draft legislation in order to abolish the 18th Amendment of the Constitution. The 18th Amendment is known for the absolute powers obtained by the former president, Mahinda Rajapaksa, who was defeated in the recent presidential election. The abolition of the 18th Amendment will revive the 17th Amendment, which placed the appointment, promotion, disciplinary control and dismissal of all state officers, including the police, on independent commissions, which will function under the Constitutional Council. The Constitutional Council will consist of eminent persons and will be an independent body. All this will curtail the powers of the executive. Several more amendments will be placed within the coming 100 days, with the view to remove many powers of the executive president and empower the Prime Minister and the Cabinet to run the country. The Australia West Papua Association, based in Sydney, Australia, has released a statement on incidents of human rights abuses that took place in West Papua through 2014. Their general summary concludes that, despite Indonesian government claims that the situation has improved, there was in fact no real progress in West Papua last year. In particular, West Papuan people continue to suffer grave human rights violations committed by the Indonesian security forces. Regular clashes and shooting incidents continued throughout the year between the Indonesian security forces and armed gangs. The association said, these incidents usually resulted in security sweeps by the military and police, resulting in human rights abuses against the civilian population in the areas of operation. The year ended with security forces firing into peaceful demonstrators on December 8th, killing 5 and injuring another 20. With the recent election of Joko Widodo as President of Indonesia, there was hope of an easing of tension in West Papua. But a number of cabinet appointments have diminished those hopes, such as the appointment of Riamizard Riakudu as Defense Minister. Riakudu holds a hardline view on what is considered separatist activities in Indonesia and has been quoted as supporting extrajudicial executions of perceived rebel leaders. Lastly, here is part of a presentation by Filipino Congressman Carlos Zarate, in which he speaks on the violent joint government and mining business attempts to flush out the indigenous population of a South Mindanao area in order to open it up to mining.
Okay, this is in Talaingod, Talaingod, Compostela Valley Province, Davao del Norte, where in the past months has been the subject of intense military operation in southern Mindanao. I went there last May to as part of a fact-finding mission, and you can really see, how these military operations affected the indigenous peoples. It's one the Manobos, the indigenous peoples in that area are really wondering why is our area being subjected to so much massive military operations, in not only ground operations but aerial bombings, and they were surprised. Why are they bombing that area? There are no rebels in that area, So the result of that fact finding, it showed that it's really a concerted effort to flash out the indigenous peoples, to allow the entry of a mining firm owned by San Miguel Corporation, so in that Pantaron Range area, because there's a big mountain range in that area that is also very rich in minerals. So after several negotiations, the military was forced to withdrew from the area, so that to allow these indigenous peoples to go back to their places. So when we went there last May, they were already back in their place, and what they saw further enraged them, because there are schools there, alternative schools established by the indigenous peoples, and these were destroyed by the military. And because they said these are actually not schools for the indigenous peoples, these schools are being used by the rebels.
That is all for this weekly roundup. For more on these and other issues, please visit www.humanrights.asia. Thank you for watching and see you next week.